So the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, or the SCO Summit, which is taking place in Islamabad, is just being concluded right now. And of course, one of the big takeaways from this entire summit is the big speech that Dr. Jaishankar has made in Pakistan, which is a very interesting speech in a number of different ways. Remember, just to brief you again, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is a grouping of a number of Central Asian countries. We're talking about countries like Mongolia, we're talking countries like the Stans, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, so on and so forth. The Central Asian countries, China, Russia, as well as India and Pakistan. It was formed in the late 1990s. India and Pakistan were added to it in 2017, and the focus really of the group is focusing on things like regional stability, counter-terrorism, and so on and so forth. Now, Dr. Jaishankar coming to this summit, of course, a lot of expectation about what he would say about the relationship with Pakistan. And in fact, he has delivered an extremely nuanced statement, right? And just before telling you about what he said, I want to say a little bit about what the context of some of this was. This is the first visit by an Indian foreign minister or a senior Indian minister to Pakistan in almost a decade. There have been interviews coming out from senior Pakistani leaders. Bilawal Bhutto, the former foreign minister of Pakistan, also the head of the Pakistan PPP, which is one of the three major political parties in Pakistan, saying that good ties with India are important. Nawaz Sharif, the former Prime Minister of Pakistan and the brother of the current Prime Minister, also saying that India and Pakistan should have good ties. This is coming off the back of lots of murmurings that Pakistan might be looking for a different relationship with India. So in the context of that, you have this big speech by Dr. Jaishankar. Of course, he did not have a bilateral meeting with anyone in Pakistan as such, although he did shake hands with Shehbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. But there was a big question about whether there would be some hints in Dr. Jaishankar's speech about the relationship with Pakistan, and Dr. Jaishankar has not disappointed. So let me tell you what he's talked about. He said that in his speech, he just said that there are three major things that the SCO was set up to combat, which is terrorism, separatism, and extremism, right? Three key challenges that regional powers wanted to look at. Remember, this was an organization that was founded at the end of the Cold War in the 1990s in a region that was extremely unstable. It really functions as a way to maintain stability on the Asian continent. So this is a very important group for India to join. So these are the three things that, according to Dr. Jaishankar, the charter of the SCO really stresses on. And he says that the world is moving towards multipolarity, globalization, and rebalancing are essentially realities that all countries are going to have to work with. So all countries are going to have to create new opportunities in terms of trade, in terms of investment, connectivity, energy flows, other forms of collaboration. So this is something that Dr. Jaishankar said a lot, that over the last 30-40 years, the world has grown extremely interconnected. There are flows of trade, there are global supply chains. It is increasingly difficult to cut yourself off, as it might have been a couple of centuries ago, from another global power. In this globalized world, something that happens in Ukraine or Israel impacts India as well. There are trade flows, there are economic flows, there are flows of energy that flow across borders, share challenges like climate change, overfishing, and natural resource problems, natural disasters that countries need to combat together. So what Dr. Jaishankar is saying here in this speech is extremely important. He's saying that, look, as a region, we need to focus on these key concepts that have these key opportunities that have been created by more globalization. We should not turn back. In fact, we should look towards more integration, and we should look at more globalization between various groups. He points out that, look, there's a massive agenda that could be open to our countries of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization if we work together. He talks about how industrial cooperation can improve competitiveness and expand labor markets. He's talked about collaboration between micro, small, and medium enterprises, helping employment. He's talked about how working together, SCO countries working together, can improve flows of investment, allowing business communities to work together more efficiently, allowing logistics to flow more easily, that would allow trade to improve more steadily, allow better environmental protection, better climate change, as well as the better treatment of diseases. So he says this very clearly. Remember that this is a statement that the Indian foreign minister is making in Pakistan, right? He's obviously sending a signal where he's saying whether it is health, food, or energy security, we are clearly better off working together. Indeed, even in culture, education, and sports are promising areas. In effect, there is so much more that we can do together once we are truly determined to do so. So he's laying this picture, he's painting this picture, Dr. Jaishankar, of what the region could look like, how the region could be better if India worked work closely with SCO countries, and the SCO was more integrated. But he also points to something interesting, and this I think is a direct message to Pakistan. He's saying, look, these are all these amazing things that we can have if we work together. But these endeavors will only progress when our commitment to the charter of the SCO remains firm, and that if you want development, if you want growth, if you want all these lovely things that I've talked about, you need peace and you need stability. And if you need that, you also need to be firm and uncompromising in countering the evils of terrorism, extremism, and separatism. So if you're indulging in terrorism, you cannot also have trade, dialogue, as well as investment flows. So in many ways, something that the Prime Minister has often said to Pakistan is that dialogue and terrorism cannot go hand in hand. He's in this speech, at least that's my read, where we also have Geeta Mohan joined by Suhasini Haider, as I can see, as well as other journalists, people who are there on the ground in Islamabad, to unpack what's happened at the SCO, unpack this major speech. Who will be a much more experienced journalist telling us whether we've got us read on this completely wrong. Geeta, could you tell us a little bit about how you are seeing this speech by Dr. Jaishankar, him laying out that the SCO can in fact work together for a lot of things like climate change, investment, trade, health, and so on and so forth, but also pointing out that if you want that agenda of cooperation, you also need to work much more closely on terrorism, avoiding extremism, and avoiding support for separatism. What are the messages that you think came out of this speech by Dr. Jaishankar?
Well, thank you, Shashank. Welcome, viewers of India Today Global. Let's just take you through what really happened at the SCO session today and the speech by Dr. Jaishankar. I'm being joined to analyze the speech. Suhasini Haider of The Hindu joins me. There's also Arzu Kazmi, a very senior journalist from Islamabad. Thank you guys so much for joining us here. Let's just break down the speech itself for us. Now, Suhasini, we were expecting fireworks. We always expect fireworks when it is India and Pakistan. But it doesn't seem like, if you compare it to Goa, the SCO meeting in Goa, or for that matter, UNGA speeches very recently, do you see a toning down over here or specific messaging?
I think there's no question that if you compare it to just 3 weeks ago when both Mr. Shehbaz Sharif and Mr. Jaishankar really traded accusations at the UNGA platform against India and Pakistan, really took it to very acrimonious level. And as you mentioned a year ago, when the Foreign Minister of Pakistan had come to India as well, we'd seen some very acrimonious exchanges. I think compared to that, what we saw inside the SCO heads of government meeting were sober speeches, were essentially speeches making their national concerns without necessarily allowing it to become overshadow the multilateral. I think from the Pakistani side, perhaps because they were hosts, Mr. Sharif really focused on connectivity and trade and more interconnectedness in his speech. Mr. Jaishankar certainly spoke about the problems that were preventing good neighborly relations, but he said that that is an objective. We need to think about why we can't get there. He mentioned two things. He spoke about China, perhaps in a veiled reference, where he said unilateral initiatives and those that go across territorial boundaries, that's a problem. He also spoke about what I call the three evils of separatism, radicalism or extremism, and terrorism. But one has to remember that those are a part of the SCO Charter. That was the reason SCO
under wraps.
Yes, SCO countries have always made it a very important part because they've been concerned about it. And that is Russia, China, Central Asia, India, Pakistan, Iran, all of them do talk about this a lot. But he made the point that cross-border terrorism or separatism or extremism is an issue, and without those being resolved, it's hard to get back to people ties. But I think it is remarkable, the difference in the tone.
It is. It is quite a difference from what we saw at the UNGA, as also in Goa, which was maybe not in terms of the statements being made in the room, but outside the room. The war of words, the heated exchanges between Bilal.
And it's early hours yet, Mr. Jaishankar.
It's a last minute, till the very last minute. We have to just see what really happens, because anything can happen. There could be, instead of an exchange of words, there could actually be a conversation. Who knows, right?
There's a lunch.
And
right now, we're expecting to hear a little bit more about whether there were exchanges. We heard about last night's dinner that there wasn't very much conversation, perhaps on a bilateral level, but we saw the handshakes both this evening and this morning, and even that is actually in stark contrast to the lack
Goa.
of a handshake
In Goa, and making it a point to just have a namaste, folded hands, welcome. The gesture was Indian, very cultural, very culture based, but the fact is that maybe they wanted to avoid a handshake. Arzu, a lot of conversation before the visit itself, whether if Dr. Jaishankar is actually going to come or not, is it going to be virtual, is he actually going to turn up and physically attend the SCO Summit, if it finally happened. What's your reading on the body language, the conversations that have taken place? And yes, Dr. Jaishankar did make the country statement quite clear with clarity on terrorism and on CPEC.
Of course, first of all, everybody noticed there is a smile. Dr. Jaishankar's smile because
not the shades, because I saw an entire video.
Yes, absolutely, right,
PMO with Jaishankar.
Yes, of course, that too. But when he met Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, he was smiling, and that thing everybody noticed because we thought कि बहुत ही कुछ tense होंगे or something like that. But it's good that he was smiling. He was much comfortable in Pakistan, as after 10 years someone from the Foreign Office of India is coming to Pakistan, so that's why everybody was so tense. But yes, terrorism is main factor which Pakistan also facing. So I think Pakistan establishment and Pakistan government is much ready to talk about it.
You think so?
I think so.
You think the establishment is ready to talk on terror?
I think they will, because we are facing it from the one border, as TTP is, attacking in Pakistan. So I think Pakistan now is serious about it because we are facing it by ourselves.
You've been facing it a long time, but Suhasini, do you agree that maybe the establishment, see, the kind of conversations, the kind of meetings that have happened would not have happened if the establishment was not in on the meetings and the manner in which the forward movement has taken place. I say this only because if you see Shehbaz Sharif's statement, he played host. There was nothing acrimonious about the statement. It was actually a very plain SEO related welcoming speech that he gave, forward looking, more visionary rather than, acrimonious in nature. But that could not have happened unless and until there are clearances, right? You think the establishment is ready to turn a corner here?
In Pakistan, the establishment always means the military establishment.
Did you think we were talking about any other?
Since 2021, when General Bajwa made the statement that we have to move from geopolitics to geoeconomics, I think we've seen a general assessment that the Pakistani military is trying to find openings with India. Often it is the political establishment that has perhaps held it back. And there has been some amount of tensions over that as well. The question now really is, we are at a point where India and Pakistan have no political meetings. They have a back channel which works sometimes. They have no trade between them. They have no road and rail links between them. And no high commissioners at present, so no top diplomatic relations that you can carry initiatives forward with. The question is, we are now 5 years after Pakistan cancelled all of these links after India's moves on Jammu and Kashmir and the 370 amendments. The real question is, given that now Jammu and Kashmir has seen elections, that we are seeing now the swearing in of the chief minister there, given that New Delhi has promised statehood, to restore statehood, so in a sense, roll back its decisions in 2019. Is Pakistan ready to roll back its decisions when it comes to trade and road and rail links as well as perhaps the diplomats?
That's a very interesting point, Arzu. Is Pakistan, now we're talking about terrorism, but we're also talking about the position that Pakistan takes in Kashmir. There has been a forward movement in India. Even as we speak, and even as Jaishankar and Shehbaz Sharif are speaking here in Islamabad, the oath-taking ceremony was taking place in Kashmir, and Omar Abdullah now is the new chief minister. So that's a huge movement for India, movement forward after a massive and a very long stalemate. But is Pakistan willing to move beyond the question of 370 in Kashmir? There can be no forward movement unless and until there is a rollback. Can there be a shift in that policy?
I I'm not sure about it, but I think that Pakistan is moving to their own to solve their own problems first.
You think so?
I think so because public also not interested, or people also not interested to take part in any such kind which we are talking about the Kashmir since last 77 years. Now, as we see that in our own side of Kashmir, Azad Kashmir, which we usually call and you see, okay, is facing, you see, terrible kind of protest and
Absolutely.
all these things. So now I think they want to focus on internal problems more than your side of Kashmir or anything like that. So I'm sure that as General Bajwa also said that we need to move from Kashmir to focus on economic side. So I think our government is also working on this, but they cannot change their mind or their action all of a sudden because then people will say or even the establishment will not
has there been, we are live, Babashir? Are you going to join us because you're live? Okay, so Arzu, you were saying?
Yeah, because that's why I feel that now Pakistani government will move slowly, but they will move from Kashmir to their own problems.
Okay, that's a very, very interesting point because there needs to be forward movement, and that can only happen if both sides have, or at least tone down a little on the positions.
This is what we need right
on the positions that have been taken. Having said that, because you said political situation, the political landscape in Pakistan is also changing, so a lot. But Imran Khan has not lost his popularity.
No.
What you're reading on the situation that we're seeing over here, we have not been able to see the city thanks to a lot of protest calls that took place. The protest did not take place, nor did us really going and looking at Islamabad again. So tell me, in terms of the political situation, what's your reading? Do you think this government is going to bring about more stability and shift from the policies of Imran Khan?
I don't think they have a power to move or to take any kind of policy by themselves. Pakistan is still facing some kind of dictatorship right now. That's why we see Imran Khan in the jail, and because everybody knows that he has a mandate this time. But last time when Nawaz Sharif has a mandate, you see that Imran Khan was the prime minister. So things almost same. But you can see backstage, or as we say in media language, off screen or something like that. So everything is working as a dictatorship already in Pakistan here, and I think still we are under army rule or some kind of that kind of thing. Otherwise, ऐसा नहीं होता what we are noticing right now.
But our Arzu Kazmi is absolutely unfiltered. No filter Kazmi who speaks her mind. Very rarely will you find somebody who will actually come out and say things in the way that she puts it. Interesting. My final questions to the both of you in terms of not just the takeaways, but the kind of language that was used. Is this an indication that India, the Indian government also, is willing to go maybe a step further from here on, Suhasini?
No, not really. I think one has to always temper one's enthusiasm because we have reached a point between India and Pakistan where, as I said, we have absolutely no real connections except for a back channel between us, where even the absence of a negative seems like an extremely positive place. But in order to get to that really positive territory between the two countries, I think a lot of work needs to be done. The next steps could perhaps be if India is willing to come for the SARC summit, send a minister for the SARC summit. Given that the minister did come for an SCO summit, the same concerns apply in India over terrorism and all of that, but he was able to come to Pakistan. Now we've had Mr. Bilawal Bhutto come to India, we've had Mr. Jaishankar come to Pakistan for multilateral events. Are they willing to make that for another multilateral event? The next step would be, is there any kind of a bilateral meeting at any of these events? And then, as I said, I think that there are very, very, very low-hanging fruit that exists in terms of just restoring ties to where they were 5 years ago.
Yes.
And if that is something that both sides are willing to move forward on, I think you can then start talking about the other.
Actually, can't be an optimist when it comes to India, Pakistan, again, because every forward movement and every step that we see is held hostage to maybe just another terror attack. And that would be our scare, that right now we see it tempering down. But what if there's another terror attack? What happens then?
I don't say anything about it because I have no point what they are doing for this. But definitely, Pakistan, as you know, they support these kind of and terror groups and everything. So it's very difficult for them to control them. As they said, non-state actor. I don't know the meaning. What is the meaning of non-state actor? Because as you know, कि पहले इनको support किया गया था, इनको लाए थे. Now they want to control them, which is very difficult. Because if they have created 10 groups, now they have 110 groups. So it's very difficult to control them. But I hope and I wish that Pakistan establishment and Pakistan government, they think about it very seriously and take some actions to prove that they are serious to control and to finish all these kind of wrong activities from Pakistan side.
Arzu Kazmi, Suhasini Haider, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global. Shashank, that's a strong messaging coming in from two senior journalists who know exactly what the situation is, not just on the ground, but they're reading on an analysis of the statements that have been made here in Islamabad. It just seems like Arzu Kazmi said that unless and until there is a real political and here establishment will as well for forward movement, there cannot be one. So optimism aside, we'll have to wait and see how this SCO forum that we've seen can translate into maybe more participation in other forums such as the SARC, or lead to bilateral conversations between the two countries. All that if there is no terror attack in the coming future. Back to you.
Understood. Thank you so much. I think there's a fascinating conversation between three journalists who have covered Pakistan and the relationship with India extensively, who are on the ground, of course, for the SCO Summit in Islamabad. I think remarkable points made there about the change in tone in the relationship, as Swasti was mentioning, just the low-hanging fruit that exists in the relationship, conversations recently about perhaps working together more on climate change and diplomacy, and working on these functional areas of cooperation. But as you were mentioning, a remarkable change in tone compared to what we were hearing a couple of weeks ago. But that's all we have for you on this live with us here on India Today Global, discussing Dr. Jaishankar's speech, perhaps signals to Pakistan in the changed tone of his remarks. Thank you so much for watching us here on India Today Global, and we will keep you updated with the latest on this story.